All right, folks. So it's been just a little while, and for the past week or so, I've been getting over a very, very nasty cold slash fever that's been going around town, such as the season. You know, 'tis the season for sickness and other things like that. But so what I want to bring today for the video is a totally not intended kind of, call it custom, if you will, Glock 19 Gen 3 build. And the whole reason why this came about is because I actually don't have a Glock 19 of any way, shape, or form. So I figured, to kind of introduce people to pistol shooting and kind of the gold standard, quote unquote, of pistols is really the Glock 19. It's so ubiquitous. Everyone shoots it. Everyone has one. It's kind of like the Honda Civic, basically, of pistols. So I figured it'd be a good idea at some point in my collection to actually have a Glock 19, so I can introduce shooters to what is considered basically the baseline pistol, to what to expect for the most common pistol design, pistol type that's out there. Because I don't have one. So the only reason why this came about is because there's a company out there called Combat Armory, and they had a bunch of Black Friday sales going on. So they had Glock 19 barrels for about $24. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, that's really, really cheap for a Glock 19 barrel. So, um, so I decided, okay, I'll buy the barrel now because it's super, super cheap, and I doubt I'll ever see a Glock 19 for that cheap ever again. So just toss it in the parts bin, and then someday I'll get around to putting together a Glock 19. But then the idea kind of got in the back of my brain. It's like, okay, because it's Black Friday or around Black Friday, Thanksgiving-ish, let's look around for all the parts I would need to basically complete a Glock 19 Gen 3 clone. So I went to the various websites, your MidwayUSA, AIM Surplus, your every other, freaking website out there that has Glock 19 parts. I started to shop around and look and see what was available out there, to see what was on sale for Black Friday or otherwise, to see exactly, okay, how much would this actually cost me to part this out and to actually put everything together. So what we have is this. This is my attempt at a Glock 19 Gen 3 clone, as you can see here. This is I've got the parts list here. I'll go through that here in just a second. But you can see, just kind of looks like your regular Glock 19. So, put everything together, put all the parts together, and ordered everything. And it took a little while for things to get here to me. But put it all together, and I will say it was actually quite a fun learning experience to really see like how all the Glock 19 parts kind of fit together, and how exactly a Glock works on like the very, very like per part basis, like where all these things go, how to put all that together. It's actually pretty easy. Total time to assemble everything probably took me about 30 minutes once I watched a video or two. Made some mistakes, of course, but it's really not that hard. So let me just go through the parts list here. So Combat Armory barrel, of course, was $25 or $24. $25 plus tax, shipping, whatever. Cool. The slide is a Swenson brand slide from MidwayUSA. That cost me $60. The upper slide part kit I got from AIM Surplus for $40. The True Glow sights, as you can see here, these are fiber optics. Also got them from Midway for about $45. Now, could you get cheaper sights, like just the regular stock Glock, like plastic sights? Absolutely, you could. But I wanted something a little bit nicer, so I went with those. I went with a OEM recoil spring. So this is a standard Glock 19 factory OEM recoil spring. That was about $7. The lower, or the frame you see here, is also a Combat Armory, and they had those on sale for about $60. And I would say this is actually a really, really, really comfy frame. I like how this thing feels. I like how it looks. And I think it definitely feels a lot better than a Glock OEM frame or a Polymer 80 frame. I don't like Polymer 80 frames, but anyways. The lower parts kit I got from AIM Surplus also. That was about $35. and then the FFL transfer fee for the frame, because it is in fact a serialized frame. As you can see there, it's got the little serial number there. So the FFL transfer was about 25 bucks for one of my favorite stores here in town. And then of course I bought a Gen 5 Glock 19 magazine for about 20 bucks. So all in all, this whole thing together cost me around 300 to 320 bucks, depending on, you know, if you count the FFL transfer fee in the magazine. So not a bad, like, kind of deal, I guess, if you put everything together yourself. It's definitely cheaper than a factory Glock 19 Gen 3. Even with Blue Label, those were coming around to like the $400 range. So it was nice to get something that, to me, looks better, feels better, and has better sights, to me personally, you know, when it comes to a standard Glock 19 Gen 3. So I was quite happy with how this thing turned out. You know, doesn't look half bad. So like I said, I got this mostly because the parts were cheap, things were on sale. I don't have a Glock 19, so I figured let's just put one together, you know, as cheaply as possible in some cases, not always. Like I said, for the sights here, I did upgrade those. So I learned a few things. I learned that you probably need about 3 hands to put together like the actual striker that goes into the slide here, because there's 2 little like half cup, little itty bitty tiny things that you have to fit onto the actual firing pin itself, and then you have to depress the striker spring, and then you got to put those cups on to catch it just right on the striker assembly itself to complete the striker assembly. That was a little difficult, and I definitely did have the spring fly off more than once into the ether, but thankfully I caught it. So, bit of learning experience there. I did end up buying one of those, is it Vism or NC Star, like sight pushers. So that was another about $60 I got off of Amazon, but I really needed that to put the rear sight on these, well, on the slide. Because, I mean, you could just sit there and put the slide in a vise and just kind of hammer it into place, you know, with a punch and a hammer. You could do that, of course. But I wanted something that was a little bit easier to do and kind of allowed me a little bit more precision. So I did end up buying a sight pusher, which I also used for other pistols. So it was definitely worth the money because I have a lot of pistols that needed very minor adjustments on the sights. So my very first attempt to put these sights on here ended up being exactly on target. So I was very, very happy about that. You know, it's really nice that even though I didn't even realize on the sight pusher there was actual like graduation marks on the pusher itself. I literally just took like the center of the slide, kind of eyeballed it a little bit, and took like a pencil and just kind of marked what I thought was the center of the slide. And then I literally just pushed the sights over until the center of the sights matched the center of my pencil mark. And thankfully, everything was exactly where it needed to be. So that's awesome. As far as the lower, though, I definitely learned a few things about that. So, stupid me, when the frame came to me, it was completely stripped. So I thought, okay, locking block goes in first. So I just took the locking block and just hammered that thing in there. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. But then I started to realize, like, wait a minute, how am I supposed to get the trigger assembly, trigger housing, trigger bar, everything into the frame if the locking block's in the way? So I thought, oh man, I made a mistake there. So I had to pry the locking block out of the frame, put the trigger assembly in, assemble the trigger, put it all together, and then put the locking block in, and then put all the pins through and everything and do all that. So a bit of a rookie mistake there, but I've never put one of these together before. So yeah, it was a learning experience, but a good one to be sure. Now, the thing I really, really hate about Glock like magazine releases and the little spring, well, you could call it a spring. It's basically a paper clip that fits on the inside of the frame here. I needed 3 hands to really, really do that because you have to bend it in such a way that it catches into the little groove of the actual magazine release itself. And so I had some help with that, thankfully. You know, my girlfriend was there helping me. So you know, she basically put her fingers into places that, you know, my fingers couldn't really reach all that well, and we got it together. So that was pretty cool. But with that, once it was all together and everything, I noticed it was a little strange. The reset for this was not exactly what I expected. I expected a stereotypical kind of Glock reset where it was very strong, very noticeable, audible, right? This one doesn't really do that. I'll see if I can demonstrate that here. So I have cocked the slide back and I'm holding the trigger back, right? And here is the reset right there. It wasn't very strong, to be honest, and it wasn't very audible. You don't hear that kind of classic kind of click and pop that comes with Glock OEM triggers. So I'm not sure if I installed something incorrectly in the trigger housing or not, or if that's just the nature of like an aftermarket lower parts kit and trigger kit where it's not Glock OEM. Maybe that's just kind of goes with the territory. I don't know. I haven't really put enough of these together to really say one way or another. But despite that, I will say the functionality of the trigger was 100%. Like, it fires, it resets, and there is no issues at all whatsoever. I did also learn, though, the hard way that you should absolutely lube your trigger components for your Glock when you actually do put it together like this. If you're putting it together from scratch and there's nothing on the parts, like no lube, no lubrication, nothing at all, you really do need to lubricate those parts, because when I put it all together and I was, testing the trigger and everything, when I was trying to pull the trigger, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is like super, super heavy. And I'm like, really, really struggle, break. And I was like, okay, that's not right. There's got to be something wrong with this. So after a little bit of Google searching, I realized to myself, I was like, oh wait, these parts are bone dry. I should probably put some oil on them. So took the whole thing apart, and I put lube on the connector and the trigger bar and everything else down in here. And lo and behold, the trigger press returned to expectations. So normal, basically. And it worked just fine. So definitely a important learning point that, you do need to lubricate your trigger components, definitely. So that was cool. Now, as far as shooting, though, yeah, I mean, this is your very, very basic standard Glock 19 Gen 3 triggers, okay? Nothing to write home about. I have never been a fan of Glock Gen 3 triggers, and I'm still not to this day. So for accuracy, at 10 yards, I'm basically drilling out the same hole on paper. There's no problem with that at all whatsoever, no problem. Now, when I got it out to 25 yards, though, I noticed I was having a lot of difficulty really shooting this gun well at 25 yards. I mean, we're talking like groups are 4 to 6 inches. They're consistent, but it's 4 to 6 inches at 25 yards, which to me is unacceptable levels of accuracy. Now, I would chalk that up to a few things. Part of that being my, I guess, relative inexperience with Glock 19 pistols and Gen 3s in general. To be honest, I really just don't shoot these things that often because I don't find them very fun to shoot. I think Glocks are pretty boring and they don't have great triggers, so I tend not to shoot them. I shoot things like Walthers and HKs because to me that's much more of a pleasant shooting experience than your bog standard Glock. So, but with the way these triggers work, it's almost like I liken it to if you ever had hang fires in like surplus ammo or old ammo going through like an old surplus rifle where you pull the trigger and you hear the striker go forward and then it goes bang. Like there's a noticeable delay from when it actually shoots and then it goes, or when the striker hits and then it actually goes bang. There's a noticeable delay there. I noticed that was kind of the same thing with me when I was trying to shoot this at 25 yards for groups and accuracy, really, really taking my time, really, really having good trigger press, breathing control, all the good fundamentals, but it's just that nature of the Glock trigger where it has to, pull the striker all the way back and then release it. That minuscule, little bit amount of time from when it pulls it back and then lets it go again, that is enough, I think, to offset my accuracy potential, my ability to shoot these things accurately at long distance. So it's really, really not my favorite platform to shoot small groups at long range with. But I know there are some people out there that can absolutely do it and definitely prefer shooting Glocks, but that's just, it's not me. That being said, combat accuracy, if I was going to use this pistol in a defensive scenario and try to engage somebody at 25 yards, okay, I would have all the confidence in the world that I would be able to do that and put that person down, neutralize the threat if I really, really needed to at those distances with a Glock pistol. No doubt on my mind. Now, like I said, am I going to get like itty bitty tiny little groups like I'm used to with my Walthers and HKs? No. But whether you can chalk that up to just the nature of how these things work, my relative inexperience with Glock pistols compared to my other guns that I shoot, whatever you want to call it, that's just the nature of the beast, and that's the results that I got. So I don't think it's anything inherently mechanically wrong with this pistol or the barrel or anything else, because some people might think, well, you only paid 25 bucks for that barrel, how good can it be? I mean, yeah, you got a little bit of a point there, but to be honest, like the accuracy results that I saw at 10 yards, even, if it's hitting the same hole every single time, that's good enough accuracy for me. I don't know what more you want, especially, with the short sight radius and everything else that goes with a Glock 19 style pistol. So, honestly, I'm actually pretty happy with how this thing performed. I had no performance issues at all whatsoever. No jams. I will say the ejection was a little bit erratic in the sense that, like, the way I shoot it, because I am left eye dominant and I shoot with my right hand. When I hold the pistol, it's not over like this on this side. It's kind of more over towards my left. So when you're looking at center line of my body, the pistol tends to be more kind of in line with my face, I guess, rather than off to the side. So when it recoils, the brass sometimes tended to eject directly into my face, and that is a problem I have with Glock pistols in general. So the ejection wasn't great. It was mildly distracting, but definitely something I could live with. But being cross-eyed dominant, there are certain things that I have to take into account when I shoot. So yeah. I mean, shooting experience-wise, it shot like a Glock 19. There's nothing really exciting or different to really say about that, except the fact that the performance was as expected as any Glock 19. I am happy though that despite it being a custom build, right, of very kind of, I would say, budget or cheap parts, the fact that it still worked 100%. I have seen dudes out there who have hyper, Gucci Glocks that spend, $1,200, $1,500 on a custom Glock 19 like this, and they can't get it to work for shit. So I am happy that despite the low amount of money that I paid putting this thing together, it works 100%. So what more could you want, right? So obviously, it doesn't have an optics cut or anything like that. I mean, it's a $60 slide. What more do you want, right? But for my intended purpose that I got this for, which is to demonstrate to people the bare bones stock Glock 19 experience, okay, if you want to call it that, this will absolutely serve the purpose for what it was intended. And for the price too, it's not bad. I mean, heck, I think it feels better in my hand. The ergonomics are better than a stock Glock 19, I think. There is absolutely nothing that I really need to do to this pistol to make it really, I guess, any better for its intended purpose. I'm not going to shoot this all that much, to be honest, because I just don't like shooting Glocks. But for the person who doesn't have the breadth of experience that I do when it comes to certain pistols, this will be a good baseline for them to compare and say, hey, this is a Glock 19 Gen 3. Now that you've shot this, let's go try something nicer like a Walther PDP, an H&K VP9, HK P30, whatever, right? To just kind of give them the wider range of experience and say, hey, everyone praises the Glock 19 and there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe there might be something better for right around the same price. So yeah, I am really happy with how this turned out, and mechanically, like accuracy speaking, I think this thing actually is capable of, the standard 2 to 2.5 inches at 25 yards with the right ammo. I am 100% sure of that. It's just I personally cannot shoot that out of this pistol in this platform in the current shape that it's in. So not a denigration against the pistol, but just an admission of my own personal skill when it comes to Glock pistols. So yeah, so if you're looking for if you have been looking at like Combat Armory parts, I will say this frame is actually freaking awesome. I really, really do like it. I like how it looks. It has the very essential undercut here. The texturing on this is fantastic. Not too rough, but then again, you know, it's I think it's perfect, honestly, for what it is. It's going to feel like your standard Glock 19 chunkiness. You know, you can see that that's a pretty chunky grip there, but standard Glock 19. You know, so yeah, it feels great. Looks great. I mean, I think it pairs pretty well with the Swenson Glock barrels there, or Glock slides and things. Yeah, so if you really want to part together your own Glock 19 style pistol, I would say Combat Armory is definitely one of the I think it's more budget minded. I'm not going to say cheap, because the quality, I think, actually has been pretty good, to be honest. I'm very happy. I mean, I put about 250, 300 rounds through this gun so far, and you know, I have no complaints at all whatsoever. So yeah, quite happy with how this turned out. But yeah, just thought I'd share this little custom Glock 19 build with y'all, and just kind of show you what's capable if you really like kind of go out there and kind of shop around and see the good deals that you can get once you really do kind of like part everything together and then like put a list together and see, okay, how much is this actually going to run me? Because in some cases, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to part out your own Glock 19 when you can get a factory one, or like a Shadow Systems or something for right around the same amount of money. And so it's like you kind of ask yourself, like, why would I order all these parts and have to put together all myself if I can just order it from the company themselves and just have it pre-made and shipped to my own FFL? And you know, there's no doubt in your mind, you know, when you put it together, it's like, okay, did I put this together correctly, or is it something wrong with the parts? Or you know, it kind of eliminates that doubt when you order from, like, say, Glock OEM themselves, or Shadow Systems, or one of the other Glock companies out there, you know, versus putting it together yourself. Because there were a lot of times where I'm like, I'm not sure if I put this together correctly, so we're going to test fire it and see what happens, and hope for the best. But you know, of course, when you order from a company like that, a reputable company, you don't have to worry about that. So it's really up to what you want to do. There are 1,000,000,001 options out there for Glock 19 style pistols like this. But you know, I'm just going to show you that, you know, if you look around and you shop around, you can definitely put together a Glock 19 for way less than what these companies are asking, and you know, have 100% reliability, functionality, and you know, it's just as accurate as anything else. So I mean, what more could you want, right? So yeah, yeah, just thought I'd bring this to you guys, a little side project that I had going on that was not really intentional, but I was like, hey, you know, $25 is $25 for a Glock barrel, you know, like what could go wrong, right? So anyway, yeah, thought I'd bring that to you guys, and that's all I gotta say. And yeah, I might feature this later at some point, but for its intended purpose, it's probably just gonna sit around, to be honest. But yeah, anyway, that's all I gotta say, and we'll see you next time.